What we wanted to do today was to start talking about MMM. And what we discovered in the market, of course, is that there's a sort of an area of education that needs to be done around MMM. People generally are very familiar with what's happening in digital in terms of measurement and attribution and multi-touch attribution. And yet, as time goes on, some of those data signals are being deprecated. There's obviously questions about, the future of cookies, the future of UTM codes, both from a legislative perspective and also with various activities that are happening within the browsers, within Apple, that are degrading the digital signals that have been traditionally used for some kind of attribution measurement. Now, MMM is having a wonderful resurgence in the market because of those things, and also because advertisers and agencies want to sort of get into an area where they're doing a lot more cross-media evaluation and starting to understand that there really is no division between digital media and analog media. It's all media, it's all marketing. There's no real sort of digital silo there, that it really is all one thing. And in order to do that, you need the tools that really cross over all the different media channels that you're using and hope to use within your media plans. The aim that we're sort of approaching is that we want to do it from an educational perspective, explain what's going on in behind what the concepts and the mathematical decisions that are made in producing an MMM. And then, of course, what is actually happening in terms of the evolution of MMM. It's not the same as it was in when it was invented in 1949. Obviously, things are changed dramatically. And so we need to show you and discuss what that looks like, because the way that we're looking at it is it's self-directed. And that allows people to essentially operate the system themselves and make it quite simple relative to other things that they get done. And so what we're going to do is two sort of steps. One is Winston will take us through the conceptual and the mathematical approaches about what's happening in the background of MMM. And then once we're done that, we're going to turn it over to Phil. Phil is our client success guy. And he'll take you through exactly what the mechanics are of putting together the MMM so that you can see every single piece of the puzzle. So without further ado, let's head over to Winston. Winston's the founder of ARIMA. And over to you, Winston, to take us through the background on MMM.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And welcome, everybody. I'll try to take everybody through the math behind a marketing mix model, and how the models are built, how the model works, and so on. Let's get started. First of all, what is the model? This is one of the first questions people ask. What does a model do? What exactly is a model? What can we get out of a model? So before we look at MMMs, we'll look at a more broad, sort of a broader topic, which is what is a statistical model. A statistical model is nothing more than a math equation that relates a target with a set of drivers. Your target is called predictive variable. That's what you're trying to predict. That's what you want to know, what you want to forecast. And then your drivers are your explanatory variables. Those are the things that could help you explain your target. So i.e. those are the factors. The purpose of a model is to find out the underlying relationship between your factors and the target. Specific to the MMMs, what we often see is the target being sales or leads or store or web visits, brand index, anything that's important for a marketer, anything that's typical for the marketer to optimize, that's your target. And drivers are anything that could impact your target, and that often includes seasonality, media spends, promotions, sometimes creative investments, sometimes CRM investments, macroeconomics, competition, all of these things. If done well, a good model can help do two things. One, attribution, which means telling you which drivers impact your sales, which drivers are more important, and forecasting. So if I do X, Y, Z, if I have a budget for next year, that's X, this is what I'm getting. So being able to, one, understand which factors are important and which ones are less important, and given a scenario, what can I hope to get out of it? So in its simplest form, that's what a model looks like. a model is simply a math equation that we've all seen in high school or in elementary school. Nothing more than something like sales equals to 300 plus 0.5 times your TV spend plus 0.7 times your search spend minus 2 times your CPI, whatever else macroeconomics factor that we choose to include in a model. So from this equation, we can already learn a lot about the relationship between media and sales, which is what we're trying to model in this case. First of all, 300 here is the baseline, which means if you do nothing, you get $300 worth of sales. This is very likely due to things like brand reputation, seasonality. Sometimes you might be a CPG brand and you're selling through grocery stores, and grocery stores are doing things. Anything that's not attributable by any factors that we include in this model simply gets to be included in part of your baseline. Every factor has a coefficient. The bigger the coefficient, that means the stronger that channel is. So here, search has a coefficient of 0.7, meaning that if you put $1 into search, you get 70 cents return, whereas if you put the same dollar into TV, you only get 50 cents back. And of course, some coefficients are negative, in this case CPI, meaning that the higher the CPI, it actually hurts your sales. And coming back to our what we've discussed, if you have a spend, if you know your TV spend and search spend are both 100 and your CPI is 5%, you can plug these numbers in and you can get a forecast. So in this case, the model suggests if this is your spend, you're expecting a sales of 410. And you can also figure out the contribution of each of your media. So in this case, TV is contributing about 12% of your sales and search about 17%. Here's what it looks like. This is a screenshot from our self-directed MMM platform, which Phil will take you through. But essentially, you've got actual sales. So this is your blue line. This is the historical data that the brand is providing. You've got your model sales, which is the orange line. This is what the model thinks you will be selling, or this is what the model equation looks like. And you can see the two they're not 100% overlapping, but they're pretty close, indicating a pretty strong fit. So in this case, your R squared is 87%. R squared tells you how strong your fit is. And then you've also got a predicted sales. So based on a media plan, this is what the model thinks what you will do for next year. And of course, depending on your media plan, and you can certainly change that, your forecast will be different. One of the questions that people asked us is, how does the model know? How does the model know which factor is stronger and which is less strong? Why is TV 0.5 and search 0.7? How did the model learn all of that? Here, we'll look at a very simple example. With just 4 weeks of data, we've got weeks 1 to 4. We've got sales data for each of the 4 weeks. We know how much we spend on TV and search for the 4 weeks. And then we also know what CPI looks like for those 4 weeks. Based on this simple scenario, let's actually try to build a model ourselves, and let's see how the model attributes sales back to TV and search. And for the purposes of this, we'll assume the model is very simple. There's no ad stock, no seasonality, no diminishing returns, none of that. We'll look at those a little later. The model building process is actually very simple. It's nothing more than different iterations. So as we start, the model will say, well, let me just take a random guess. Let me take a wild guess. I'll assume that sales equals to 200 plus 1 times TV plus 0.4 times search minus 1 times CPI. And based on this wild guess, the model will say, well, we've got 4 weeks of historical data. Let's actually make a prediction and let's see how good the predictions are. And if we use these numbers to make a prediction based on this equation, you'll see here's a column, it's called prediction, and there's another column called delta. Delta is simply the difference between your prediction and your sales. So the bigger the delta, that means the far off. It means you're far off. Based on this prediction, you can see we've got a total delta of 175, or about 12%. So not too bad. We've hit 88% accuracy based on this guess. It's pretty good, but we can do better. On its second try, the model will make some adjustments. So now, as you can see, your coefficients are different. And when you have a different coefficient, you have a different set of predictions and a different set of deltas. Now your total delta is 91 over the course of the 4 weeks, and error rate came down to 6%. So now the model has improved. And if you try again, you can see now on the third attempt, there's now a different model equation with a different set of predictions and different set of deltas. Now you can see deltas are much better. Adding up the 4 weeks, we're only looking at $43 off, with 1 week being perfect prediction. So now your error rate came down to 3%, and this is a very good model now. This is the best coefficient we came up with over the course of the 3 tries, and we're going to lock this in, and we're going to say this is our model, and this is in fact how the model understands how attribution works. In reality, the process is a lot more complicated than this, because generally speaking, we don't have a model. We won't have a model with just two coefficients or 2 input variables. Very often we're dealing with 10s and 20 and 30 different media variables, macroeconomics, competitors, and so on. So in fact, you're going to have to try billions and billions of these trials to get to the right numbers, to get to the best numbers. But in principle, this is how a model building process works. So the actual process may be much more complicated, but essentially the steps are the same. We define an equation with unknown coefficients. We come up with a best guess. We evaluate how good that guess is, and we tweak, and we repeat steps 2 and 3 until we achieve the highest accuracy. And once these coefficients are determined, we say we found our model now, and we can use this model for attribution and forecasting. This is a really simple model, and a lot of you are going to look at it and say, well, this is not how media works at all. There are, what about this? What about that? All these different little special scenarios that we have to consider. So the next step what we'll do is we'll actually enrich the model. By enriching the model, there's a few different factors that we'll add in, a few different considerations. The first one being ad stock. So we all know that ad stock is really important in advertising. When you invest money, you don't get a return right away. For example, when you air a TV commercial, people don't just see something on TV and react right away. That process could take up to weeks. People see a commercial, they remember, maybe 3 weeks later, they go into the store and they check out your product. Maybe another 2 weeks later, they'll go talk to their friends, they get some testimonials, and then they make a purchase decision. So that process can take quite a bit of time, and this is called ad stock. Here on the right, we have a graph. Again, this is taken from a platform where you've got investments, which are the red bars, and attribution, which are the gray area. And then you can see there's a clear delay between when investment happened, for example, this bar here, and when your sales peaked. There's about a 2 to 3 week delay in this case. This is for social media, and this is ad stock. MMMs are capable of understanding ad stock, and therefore these are all factored into the model. Some common choices are either geometric or Weibull distributions for ad stock, and they can be as short as a week or 2 typically for digital channels, to up to 8 to 12 weeks for especially offline channels like TV. So that's part of the model that's included. The other thing is saturation. This is also called diminishing return. As we invest more money into a channel, its return starts to plateau. So you start off with being more efficient, and as you spend more in the channel, your investments are less effective. So here are 2 examples. You've got an orange channel and you've got a green channel. For the green channel, it picks up really quickly, but it starts to flatten very quickly as well. Whereas for the pink channel, it picks up slower, but its saturation lasts a little longer. So you can see if you have a smaller budget, the recommendation would be to spend that in the green channel because it picks up faster and you get better return for your dollar. Whereas if you have a bigger budget, then you want to hold off on putting everything in the green channel because it'll flatten quickly, and you want to mix it up a little bit with the pink channel. So this is called saturation, and this is again also included in models. Seasonality, very important. In fact, in most cases, for most brands, seasonality could contribute could make up 60-70% of your total sales. So it's definitely important. Seasonality are things like months, different month of the year, different weeks of the month even, and holidays, end of the month effect, special periods like school enrollments, Christmas times, and so on. So seasonality is a thing, and that's also part of the model. In some seasons, you just sell well, and in some seasons, you don't sell as much, and that's just part of marketing, and that's also included in the model. And lastly, interaction terms. A lot of times media impact one another. So if you have TV and search in market at the same time, for example, there is a multiplicative effect. When the two are in market at the same time, you get sort of 1 + 1 is greater than 2 kind of return. So you don't want your media to be entering separately. You want them all to come in together. This is called interaction of factors. And you can see here's an example of how that's included in a model. We use something called multiplicative models, where the factors are multiplying rather than adding. When terms are adding, they're independent, meaning that they don't impact one another. So if you look at the top equation here, when all your different terms are adding together, and TV is independent of search. If you put more money into TV, you get higher returns, but that doesn't impact how searchers do it. Whereas in the multiplicative case, everything is multiplying. And when you multiply two things together, changing one also impacts the other. So multiplicative models are a little more accurate, and that's where the industry is going. Right? Everybody uses multiplicative models now. When I first started building MMMs 12, 13 years ago, I was using additive models, but now everybody is shifting into the multiplicative space. Additive models are a little easier to interpret and a little easier to build, but computers are very strong nowadays, and they can handle more complicated situations like multiplicative models. There's a couple of last things that I want to talk about, and just to keep the presentation short. Sometimes there's additional structures that we would like to impose in a model. For example, we want to know if a factor is impacted by other factors, like TV spend typically increases your search volume, and your search volume will in turn impact sales. How do we include that in a model? There's also brand equity. How can we impact that? How can we include that into a model? For example, you're investing in an awareness channel, and that drives your brand equity, and that in turn impacts your sales. How do we include that? Or how do we impact different tactics? Like we've got different creatives A, B, and C, and they'll have different impact on your TV performance. How does that impact sales? So this is a more advanced topic where there's a lot more structure in our models, and we want to be able to include all of that in our MMMs. There's a technique called structural equation modeling in statistics. Funny enough, it's also SEM, but this is a different SEM than what we're used to seeing. And structural equation models have a wide range of applications in social sciences, and it's something that people have built for many decades ahead of this. But now we're bringing that into marketing mix models as well. Essentially, what it's doing is you're building a hierarchy of models nested with one under the other. So here you can see we've got sales. This is what we're trying to model. Sales is impacted by three things: brand equity, low reach TV, and search. Brand equity is then in turn impacted by two other things: radio and TV, branded TV. Search is also impacted by two things: out of home and TV. And finally, radio is impacted by two things: your local radio and your national radio. So two different tactics. And as you can see, a hierarchy like this translates to four different equations. I've listed them all down here. Four different equations nested under one another. This is called a nested model. What we're really interested in is the top equation here, which helps us understand sales. But we're also interested in the nesting of the equations because every one of these factors is impacted by something else. This is something that can be estimated, can be calculated through an MMM, and Phil will take you as he takes you through our platform demo. He'll show you how you'll be able to build up these nested structures in MMMs. And this is really important because imposing these structures can help the model better understand which channels are working and which channels are not. So here we're giving you an example. We've got 3 channels here: search, social, and TV. And each of them have their returns. So you can see search is doing pretty well. $1 in, $6.25 back. Social is doing okay, and TV is the best channel. But actually, if you look further, if you were to add sub-channels into our models, if you were to break TV down to TV local and TV national, just like what we're doing here with radio, you can see it turns out that TV local is not that great. It's only giving you a $3 return, whereas TV national is giving you a $10.66 return. So the fact that TV is giving you an $8 return is really an illusion, because it's the average of 2 things, and actually one is not very good and one is very good. So what you really want is to spend less money on local TV and spend more money in national TV, and that's how you drive that number even higher. One last thing just to wrap up the presentation part. There's something called the no free lunch theorem, which I want to talk about, which says that all models perform roughly the same when their performances are averaged across all possible problems. One big problem that I see with people building MMMs is they get too much into understanding the technical details. People will debate about, my approach is better, your approach isn't. You should be doing this and not that. This is how you should be setting your models. These are not factors that you should include, etc., etc. While it's important to focus on modeling, one should also understand that in general, models perform the same. And what's actually really important is to focus on collecting better data and maintaining model recency. Historically, when I built MMMs, when I was on the agency side building MMMs, we built these models, once a year. Data weren't very good, data weren't well collected, and we built models. Models took a really long time to update. So believe me, if your models are 1 year old, then no matter how good your algorithm is, you're not going to get very good results. And hence, what we're really advocating here at ARIMA is that people need to be updating their models real time. And the only way you can do that is if updating models are really, really easy. And in the next part of the presentation, Phil will take you through that process to show you how easy it is to build your model, to experiment. And in my opinion, this is how you get the best results out of MMMs. Okay, great. That's all there is to my presentation. We'll share this with you after the webinar. And now over to Phil.
Yeah, let's just take a moment before you jump in there. Is there any questions from anybody on the theories and the math behind on MMM? You can either put them in the chat window or just go on unmute and ask away for everyone. I'll just take a moment for anyone to do that. No? Okay. All right. Well, heading over to you, Phil. Let's
thank you.
How easy it is to put this thing together.
Yeah, just wanted to wrangle the share screen access from Winston here. Let me share my screen with everyone. So everyone should be able to see this document I have. I'm switching through tabs. We're all good. Okay. So hello, everyone. Some of us have met, some have not. I'm Phil, the Customer Success Manager, so I'll be walking everyone through how to build and use the self-directed MMM tool. So there's 2 components to this part of the webinar. The first thing I'm going to do is show you how to prepare your data to enter it into the tool, and then how to read the output afterwards. So what you'll need to follow along if you're interested in that, which I highly recommend you do, you should have received a link to a marketing mix modeling platform overview. So you'll want to open that. It may be in the webinar link, or we'll share it in the chat right now. So I'll give everyone a second to basically jump in there. How can I share this? Just a moment. Okay, that should be a link to the document. So it's in chat now. And what you'll want to do is scroll down to page 14. So this is an overview of the MMM tool. It gives you some more info on what's going on and how to read it. But essentially what you want to do is get down to page 14 here. want to make sure I got some faces in the way. And you'll be looking for this link here that you can see on the screen, download your data. Okay, so you're going to right click, make a copy of that. And this is the data we're going to be entering into the MMM tool. So you should be able to see that here on my tab now. So I'll give everyone a minute just to, first of all, go to the link that we've entered in the chat and scroll down to page 14. And from there, you can actually access the data decisions, mock MMM data. Perfect. I see some anonymous elephants popping in. I'll just give everyone another 30 seconds. Sweet. All right. Let me just move my notes forward here. So now that you've got the platform overview and the data, so this is how your data should look when it's prepared for data entry. Okay. The first thing we're looking at here is two columns. One is the weekly date, and the other is the sales, weekly sales, essentially. So there's two ways you can do this. You can do it at a weekly cadence or a monthly cadence. The more data, the better. So recommending a week if you have it. Okay, this is very straightforward. It has each week of 2022 with an associated sales number. So that's the first step. The second step is preparing all of your media spend. So to keep things extremely simple, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but I've shown you here Google. So you can export this from Google directly. It'll give you by date, campaign type, but more importantly, spend. Spend is the most important thing that we need in terms of media factors. It's okay if there's other columns here. What you really need is spend. Going a little bit more into detail with what Winston was talking about with different hierarchies and different contributing factors to radio, for example, national versus local. You can have all that data in here as well, but most importantly is the spend at a base level. I also have social media spend here as well. Another column here might say like, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever. But most importantly, if we're attributing social media, we need to spend numbers for that. Finally, we have TV as well, the same format, daily or weekly or monthly TV spends, out-of-home spends, and competitor data. This could be sales. This could be media spends of your competitors. It could be like search volume. Pretty much anything works. So again, just to repeat, we've got our sales data prepared, nice and clean. We've got our Google data, our social media data, TV, out-of-home, everything is nice and neat. So you want to take some time to prepare that for yourself. Okay. Just keep in mind all these numbers are randomized in this document. So again, just keep that in mind. So I'll let everyone take a second to look at that. And we will get into how to enter it into the platform. So once you log into Arima, I probably should preface that as well. If you haven't created an account yet on arimadata.com, you want to go to arimadata.com, click the login button and create your account from there. Once you're in there, you'll be able to access the marketing mix modeling tool. Let me just show you what that looks like actually. So you come here, you hit login, it'll skip this for you, but you create your account, you get to the dashboard and you go to marketing mix modeling. Once you're there, you look for a green button that says create new MMM, and then you will land at this screen. All right, so I'll give everyone a second to sort of catch up there. Again, marketing mix modeling, create new MMM. This is where you're going to land. It'll look pretty familiar. So first steps is identifying the model name. We've called this one ABCD training. Enter your country, which will be Canada or US. The start and end date of the sales data, ideally here is what you're looking for. So our data starts on the 1st of January and it ends on the 1st of January 2023. So you can see 1st of January here. The brand strength, it's up to you to decide whether you're a new entry brand. If me and Winston started a company today, we would be a new entry brand, whereas a leading brand might be Coca-Cola or Nike. You want to identify your KPI data type, which for us is sales today, but you can also use volume. The model doesn't pick and choose. You can use leads, you can use store visits, you can use website clicks, whatever data you have, it's almost unlimited. So anything works. So the first thing we're going to do is input our sales data. We've called it sales. We've selected sales. Everything's good. We're going to open the spreadsheet here where it says upload KPI data. Okay, and we have a blank Excel sheet essentially. So what we're going to do is we're going to tab back to data to decisions. We're going to pick our sales tab here. We're going to hit Control A, Control C. So that's a copy paste function. And we are going to copy paste this into A and B. All right. Excuse me. So now what we have here is all of our sales data added in columns A and B. So the last step is to tell the tool which column has the KPI in it. So down here you can see the KPI column. We want to tell the tool it's sales. So it's going to pick sales from the header and take all that data below it. We identify the date column, and we also identify the data frequency, which is weekly in this case. Okay, and that's it. It's that simple. That's how you upload your sales data. That's the first step. If you're able to complete that, we are golden. Next step is to hit continue. And I will just give everyone a second to finish that last step. And now is a good time to also drop any questions in the chat. All right. I can actually see the chat, so I will assume there are no questions.
There is one question.
There is?
Well, is the sales data unit sold or revenue, or does it not matter here?
I want to go ahead and say it doesn't matter here. You can use units if you want, but you would use the volume tab instead. Sales would be a dollar figure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Also, data units could also be website traffic.
That is
Just an
correct.
example. Yeah.
That would be a part of the volume drop down rather than sales. So, you know, at this point, everyone can see like almost anything works. So the
Okay.
next step here, we're going to identify our product name. Just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to call us Coca-Cola. And so now we're going to enter in our spend data. Okay, so all the stuff that we've prepared here, Google, social media, TV data, out of home, this is all spend data. We got to put all this into the machine. So we're going to start by identifying the channels, Google, social, TV, out of home. So I hit add new media factor. I indicate that it is a channel. Enter the media here, so it will be Google. And the type will be SEM. We will hit submit. We're going to add social media. So we hit channel, next, social. And there's also a social type here. So we're going to submit that. We're going to add another one. We're going to do out of home, I believe, was another channel I had. And again, the type, we select out of home. Just so you know, you can make this anything. You know, this can be influencers. This can be, you know, whatever channel you want. The type also just needs to match as closely as possible according to your definition. What else we got? TV, and that's it. All right. So we're going to add our TV channel. We're going to also select the type and submit. So the next step is to add our data into the spreadsheets. So just like the sales data, we're going to open our Google tab here. Please ignore the numbers I got. We're going to go back to our sheet, go to the Google tab. Apologies here. We're going to Control A, Control C, which is copy pasting all this data. You can see there's a third column here, but you can just copy paste that in as well. Don't have to worry about it. And now if we scroll to the top, sorry, I've got a bunch of heads in the way from Zoom. Now we have our data copied over. So date, spend, campaign type, okay? Short story is C doesn't matter. If you have the data, don't be afraid to paste it in. It will help you out in the future, and I'll cover that as we go along. So now I'm going to identify the KPI column, which is spend, column B. So it's called spend, that's the header. We're identifying the date column, the date. The frequency is weekly. Overlapping dates is okay. You know, you have 1-3 a few times here, and then you have 1-10, so it's a weekly cadence. We're going to select that, and we're going to hit upload data. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this process for each channel. So please bear in mind, or just bear with me. Let me just do this a few times. I also invite you to do it a few times as well, just to really drill it in. Okay, so next we're looking at social. Got to move my Zoom heads. We're going to copy paste the social data, which is again date by spend. We go back to Arima. We're in the social tab here. You can see copy paste. Scroll up to make sure we got the right data in. Excuse me, spend and date. Identify the KPI column, the date column, the frequency, upload data. Okay, I'm repeating this for out of home and TV real quick. So I go back to my Excel sheet where all my prepared data is. I go to the appropriate tab for each channel. I copy paste that into the tool, and then I identify the columns. The KPI is spend, date is called date, and the frequency is weekly. One more up to bat, and we're all done. So one more time, grabbing my out of home stuff, copy pasting it straight into the tool. Nice and simple. Got spend by date, columns are set, the frequency is good. Boom, that's it. So that's the most simplified version of entering in your data. Again, most of your time will be spent preparing that sheet, but with the handy way you can export from all platforms now, it's pretty straightforward. So there's a couple other things you can add into the model that are completely optional but recommended. Non-media factors here. We have a ton of macroeconomics that is part of our data, so you don't actually have to do anything except select what you want. It depends on your industry and your company. So in some cases, COVID cases or the outbreak might affect your business. Whatever you think affects your business, we got CPI for goods, gasoline, food, rent price, GDP data, S&P for the Canadian market, the interest rate, and so on. Use whatever you want. If you have data for factors that we don't have, I'm pretty sure we can also add those in for you as well, as long as you bring that data to us and give it to us. So in our case, we might select interest rate, and we might add COVID cases. Okay. You can also bring your own data. You can call it whatever you want. You just use your own data. And factor 3 might be like, I don't know, honestly, but if you have your own data, you can bring it in. Finally, you want to add your competitor data. There's 2 ways to do this. The first one is bring your own. So if you have your spend data from whatever platform, competitor 1, I might have some spend data. I can copy that in the same way as I did sales and spends. Or you can also choose to use search volume. So search volume is going to essentially measure Coca-Cola search volume, which is our product name, against whatever you enter down here. So it might be Pepsi. And so this will go into, I think it's 4 or 5 different search engines and give you an idea of the share of voice and how much other companies or competitors is taking away from you relative to your own search volume. So yeah, that is it. That's it. I just talked a lot and we did a lot of copy pasting. But I think if you follow along closely, you'll see, even the most junior person can operate this vehicle. So yeah, it's that simple. The next thing I want to show you guys, now that we've done all this, we're going to hit update model, save progress.
Couple questions, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got someone asking, do we have to repeat this process every week, or is there a way to automate it?
Right now, you can update the tool as you want. I don't think a week of data is going to make a groundbreaking change in your model. So I recommend probably updating it every month, maybe every 2 months. It also depends on your levels of spend. If you've only spent $1,000 in the past week, probably not a big deal. But if you had a huge campaign last month and you spent $1 million on out of home, you probably want to include that in the model as soon as possible, as well as the associated sales with that.
And what is the most automated way that we can take in data right now at this time?
Right now, the most automated way is doing it manually, but if you export, you can actually, there is no automation to enter data right now, but I believe that's something we have in the plans in the future.
I can take a stab at it at that one. There is a couple of integration partners we're looking at, which basically allow us to connect directly to your digital buying platforms. Obviously, for traditional channels like TV spend, for example, there is not much of a way to automate that, and you just have to do it manually. But if we get the permission from you, we can directly API into your Google, into your Meta, into your whatever platforms, and we can fetch data directly from that. So we're doing the best we can to make this as automated as possible. Of course, knowing that it will not be 100% fully automated.
Okay. Next question is, what about weather? It's very influential, not necessarily a macroeconomic, but how does that factor into this platform?
Yeah, it's one of the factors that you can select from. In fact, we have a client in the alcohol space, and weather is a really big thing for them. So that is a factor that you can select. Yes, for sure.
Okay. And then on the business side is, do you pay per MMM or can you make an unlimited number of models? Right now we're at unlimited number of models. So typically we're supporting agencies, and of course advertisers if they want to also take this approach, but agencies can use this platform to run as many models as they want across all of their clients, across all of the brands, and even do submodels based on geographies or other lines of business. We think that that's an important thing, is that agencies really do need to be able to try out models and see different sort of factors that they can input and see the results of it, and then sort of take it to their clients and go, this is what we're seeing when we look at the model. How can we improve? How can we get better data or faster data into the system?
Yep.
I think that's it for questions now. Is there anything else there that you want to show us, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do a quick walk through the actual tool. So once you've hit save and upload, you're essentially going to land at a screen like this. Everybody should be practically on a screen like this after uploading. So there's a few tabs that I want to run everyone through quickly, but essentially you're invited to explore yourself. You know, you will have different numbers. Sorry, everyone who is in the presentation now will have a different report than me, but it works the same. You just have the demo report. So yeah, I invite everyone to walk through it themselves and poke around and send us questions, but let me take you through it right now. So what we're looking at here is the executive summary screen. It's as it's described, this is a summary screen. So you can see your total investment in each channel, your weeks in market, your weeks out of market, your ROAS per channel, strengths and benchmarks, and your external factors. You have your generated sales for the 53-week the 53-week period of data provided, and the accuracy of the model, predicted sales, and so on. So this is a summary screen. Next, you have a sales forecast that has basically a line chart that forecasts into the future. We have some sliders on the right here that let you test out some hypothetical or what if scenarios. If I were to double online video spend next year, what would be the outcome? So, you know, there's some levers you can play with here to see what the future holds, depending on X or Y decision you might want to make. You can definitely theory craft in here a lot. We also have a return on ad spend curve that Winston, talked about earlier. You can manipulate this graph, to break it down to the specific elements you're looking for. We have a media optimization tool. If I had this much budget in the future and I want to take out these channels, how would my spend split look, and how much return on ad spend would I get based on the settings that I choose and the channels that I choose. We also have a historical ROAS bar that's also future looking as well. So, future marginal ROAS as well as historical ROAS. And so one cool thing that I want to raise here is Winston mentioned how, if you guys remember the tree with all the different split outs, if you bring the data, for example, in Google, we have our campaign types. You can actually split this out, just as Winston showed earlier. And now you can break out your Google campaign types. So instead of having Google as a whole, we can see the contributions of search versus display versus discovery versus PMAX and video, which I'm sure everyone wants access to. So this is another very useful tool. Finally, there's a waterfall chart here, which puts your competitors and the external factors, how they contribute or take away from your bottom line revenue in terms of percentage and dollar figures. And then also the contributions of each media channel here as well. And those breakouts, for example, instead of having just Google, we can also see, again, search, display, PMAX, video, whatever you want. Or you can just have Google. It's totally up to you and how you want to split it out. So again, just to piggyback on what Winston described, is if you have the data, the possibilities are limitless. You can do creative duration. You can do French versus English language on your TV ads. You can do different creatives. You can have different campaign types, different campaigns or lines of business. So really, it's exponential. If you have the data, the tool can measure it. Finally,
okay,
we have
a couple of questions, Phil.
Yes, please.
That have come up in the chat window. I think are really good ones. Maybe Winston, you want to sort of jump in on this as well. We're being asked, what data sources would you use for macroeconomic and other non-media factors? So I think that's where we're in the second step there, where we're choosing the macroeconomic factors that are going into the model.
over here?
There's a lot you can choose from. We get our numbers from data sources like the Census Bureau, World Bank, NASDAQ. Those are some of the places we get our numbers from. And currently, people have to choose your own. So you sort of have to look at your business and go, I think this factor impacts my brand, and therefore I'm going to try and include that. But it's in the pipeline that will be in the development pipeline where we'll be looking at automated selections. So you could click a button and we'll run through all the different scenarios and come back to you and say, we think these are the top 5 factors that impact your brand. So that's coming.
Great, thank you. And one more question here. What factors could impact a model accuracy, and what is a good score for model accuracy?
Yeah, a lot of factors could impact model accuracy. One example could be the inclusion of some factors. So for example, if you are a restaurant business, let's say you're looking at modeling sales or store visitors, then you absolutely want to include COVID, especially if you're building a model for 2021, 22. So if you did not include COVID, then your model accuracy may not be good. Second thing is sometimes how variables are represented can be a very important factor, very important thing as well. For example, years ago, I used to work on an automotive brand. And one of the things that impacted their brand is new product launches. But new product launch is sort of a qualitative thing. Like, how do you exactly qualify that? There were major model revisions, that's like really big model changes, and there were minor model revisions. So being able to include that properly into your model, being able to turn a qualitative factor into a quantitative one and doing it properly is also very important. Otherwise, the model doesn't really get the gist of the factor. So even though the tool is self-serve, we are available, in particular I'm available to help you with setting up your model and talk through all the different scenarios. So that's that. And lastly, what's a good score for a model accuracy? Typically, we would look at a 90% plus R squared. We would say that's a really strong model. 85% plus is pretty good, is like a good number. And then if it's below that, we would want to look at that together and see whether it's a data problem, it's a modeling problem, maybe some factors are not included and so on. But 85 plus is generally what I aim for.
Yeah, and we just wanted to draw, thank you, Winston, wanted to draw attention to one of the questions that was brought up in chat and answered in chat. Gerard was asking about impressions and GRP data. It doesn't seem that we're pulling in impressions and GRP data into the model. And there's a good reason why. And as you pointed out, is that not every channel is measuring GRPs and impressions the same way. And of course, dollar values are a sort of a hard data point. Dollars are actually dollars, whereas impressions across a lot of the different media channels are defined in many, many different ways. So trying to compare and create an equivalency between impressions on one platform, say TikTok, versus impressions on YouTube, are actually two very different things. And so it depends on duration weighting and all sorts of stuff that is not really nailed down right now. So better to go with dollar figures, has been our approach. I see a couple other more things here in the chat. What's the optimal model duration that you would recommend?
At least 2 years. Minimum, you want 1 year worth of data because you want 1 year of full seasonality. Otherwise, if you only come up with 6 months of data, then you ask the model to predict what's happening in the next 6 months. Well, the model will say, sorry, I've never seen that. So 1 year minimum. 2 year is my recommended approach. This is recommended length because you'd have at least 2 data points to confirm every period, so to say.
For sure. I think one of the things to point out is that traditionally with MMM, it's been, here's 2 years worth of data, it goes into the model. What we're seeing now with many MMMs, and including ours, is that the MMM is live. So what we start with today, if we start with 1 year's worth of data, before you know it, 6 months has gone. Now you've got a year and a half worth of data. You're heading towards 2 years. So better to start early with less data and not wait until you sort of get your full 2 years worth of data. It's better to start using the models as quickly as possible and improve the models as you go along. Can you model national versus regional local dollars to Toronto? We have seen some brands that do a national MMM and then they do regional breakdowns. They also do lines of business breakdowns. So what you start with is one model, and before long you end up with many models, which is good because obviously you're trying to optimize. It allows you to do things like geographic A/B testing in different regions, and also keep a sort of a bird's eye view on the national side.
Yeah, if you have the data, like it can practically be measured. So,
and really, it's, you know, this is where the agency is very strong in understanding how they can buy and apply gather the data around the media spends, and if it's broken up regionally and also nationally, is that they're seeing those things at the very beginning. So you'd want to set up your model to mirror what you're doing on the buying side. Again, because the intent is not just to get a number, the intent is to actually change things as you go along and say, okay, well, if we're looking into this region, let's do a test, or let's determine something, and then we can make changes based on how that data has been modeled back and or sort of as it has been reported. These are some really great questions. I'm you know, they're great to see these.
So just moving along, I think we've answered all of them. If you've managed to this point to, you know, look through the prepared data, copy paste it into the tool, and you got down there to hit that update button, congratulations, you have built your first MMM. So I encourage everyone to please go through the screen that comes after that, which is the MMM, play with it, see how it works. Refer to the platform overview to get deeper insights, because that document does list out, you know, how to read all the different tabs. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. And then finally, if you went through this exercise and you're on the MMM, look for the confetti. If you find the confetti, the first 5 people to email us, we'll have a small gift for you. So please make sure to check that out. And with that, I think I send it off to Chris to take it home.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so thank you all for attending. Really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. We've kept it to an hour. Of course, if there's other questions that have come up, because it is a fairly large topic, absolutely happy to answer them directly. Or, you know, if you wanted to throw it to something like LinkedIn, you can always contact us on LinkedIn at Arima, or, you know, directly on my or Winston's LinkedIn account. And then that way those conversations, everybody can have a look and sort of see where we're going with those. As we pointed out, there is a little gift if you manage to, for the first 5 people who managed to get their MMM together. We think it's really important that you actually try it out and use that dummy data, upload, go through the process, see what it looks like, and really feel like, well, this is, I'm actually doing the thing. And that's why we sort of approach it to self-directed MMM. It is about getting the agency in control of that data and being able to report it the way that you'd like to have it done. So again, thank you very much, and hope to see you at some point in time. And we'll be at Media next week in Montreal. And of course, we'll be at the Media Innovation Awards towards the end of the month. And again, thank you so much for attending.